So,
3 minutes down.
Thanks for having me, first of all, and for braving the weather to get here. And it's nice to not have to speak to an empty room. I'm going to tell you 3 stories today, and I think as a result of telling you 3 stories, you'll understand what it is that I do as an entrepreneur. So when I was 7, 8 years old, 7, 8, 9 years old, I had a lot of freedom. My parents gave me a good foundation. My grandparents lived close, and they gave me a good foundation. And evidently, I garnered a lot of trust because they gave me a lot of freedom, so I could leave on my bicycle in the morning and not return until dark. That was my only rule. Just make sure you're back here by dark. And so frequently I would venture off 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 miles from my house. As a result of enjoying that much freedom and demonstrating that I could be trusted with it, I was able to do pretty much anything I wanted to do. And so I flourished because of the freedom that I had. And so I was really good at baseball. I was an all-star pitcher and a slugger, hitting over 500. I was a really good swimmer. Could hold my breath underwater for a minute and a half. I was a really good money maker. I found this thing called redeemable soda pop bottles, and that I could gather them up from all the ditches around my neighborhood and take them to the A&P and fill my pockets with cash. And so at age 6, I started collecting soda pop bottles and redeeming them for money. And so I never wanted for cash to get the things that I enjoyed. I was a really good reader. Mom had me in her lap from the time I was old enough to sit in her lap, reading to me, and then she taught me to read. And so by the time I was 9 years old, I could read to an 8th grade level. So I flourished. If there was a Fortune 50 list for kids, I might have been number 1 on that list because of the environment that I grew up in and the freedom that I enjoyed. So I didn't have any limitations in my mind or limitations in my thinking. But then something happened when I turned 10 that turned the tide and set me on a different course. I got molested. And then as a result of going down that different course, I made different decisions, I took in different information, I made bad choices, I acted out in negative ways, and the results began to pile up. The next thing I know, someplace I didn't want to go, paying more than I wanted to pay, staying a whole lot longer than I ever wanted to stay. Then when I turned 13, I had this beautiful little girlfriend, and we were really enjoying each other. It was more like a friendship. You know, at age 13, I wasn't thinking too much about. So we really enjoyed a great friendship. We hung out together, we did almost everything together. I come home from school one day, my mother says, "I have some bad news. Monica died." So my first encounter with death was at age 13. Fast forward, I turned 17, I'm the life of the party, I'm filling up the golf course with friends, and we're having a cake party. That tells you about the course that I'd gone, or the path that I'd gone as a result of what happened earlier in my life. And we floated the keg early, and I rounded up a bunch of buddies, and we were headed to the store to buy another keg, and some girl spun me around and gave me a kiss. And I don't even remember who she was, but as a result, I waved my buddies on. And en route, they had a head-on collision and killed everybody on board. So a whole car full of my buddies dead. Then I graduated high school with a D- average, and one of my buddies got hooked on heroin, couldn't take it anymore, and killed himself. Put a gun in his mouth, blew his head off. I turned 20, cleaned my life up a little bit, had a good job, was just getting started in creating a new entrepreneurial venture for myself, got married, had a kid almost immediately. He was born, had to have open heart surgery the day he was born. Right ventricle wasn't fully developed, so they did a shunt bypass. And they told us, after he came out of the surgery, they said, everything went well, he looks great, he's going to have to take this medicine in about 5 years, the procedure will have to be enlarged because it won't be able to keep up with his growth. So we thought, okay. We expected the second experience with the hospital to be just like the first, because the first one was so easy, even though it was high stress because we didn't understand what he was going through, and you understand, right? Something like that happened, it was really high stress. So we take him back in when he's just about to become 5, and they administer the anesthesia and he dies in my arms. So I don't share that with you to get you to give me sympathy or to feel bad. There's actually a bright side to this whole story, and that is that, well, I'll get to that in a second. Fast forward a little bit more, my younger sister dies. Fast forward a little bit more, my younger brother dies. So I have this intimate relationship with death. I have this intimate relationship with bad choices and bad actions that are getting me negative results. And yet, I'm this 7, 8, 9-year-old kid who was flourishing. What happened? What changed? So, a couple things I left out of the story. I became an entrepreneur after encountering a lot of resistance in the workforce from people in front of me who were happy with the status quo. They just wanted to come to work and do their job, punch out, get their paycheck, and go back home. And I was driven for some reason. I don't know why, but I was driven. And I kept running into them, and I finally said, that's it, I just can't stomach this environment anymore. And so I went out on my own and officially started my first entrepreneurial venture. By the time I was 22 years old, we were doing about $3 million a year in business. I had 21 employees. We were killing it. It was a whole different world back then. The point of this story is that without freedom, it becomes very, very difficult to grow. It becomes very, very difficult to flourish. The things that happened to me hemmed me in. They were like psychological anchors that held me back. Have you seen the movie Gulliver's Travels? Remember the giant laying down on the beach and all the little people strapped him in with all these little bitty lashes? It took a lot of those to lash him down. Well, that's kind of what it was like for me. I was lashed down or lashed back in my past, always dragging my experience into the present to make decisions about my future. And I just kept repeating the pattern over and over again. Made a bad decision with my partner in my first business and ended up having to liquidate my shares and move on because I was scared that I would end up in prison if I didn't. He was that unethical. I took a little break from being an entrepreneur and immediately encountered the same resistance that I had previously, so I just decided, all right, I'm ready. I'm recovered, I'm going to go back out and start something new. All of these things became anchors, or it kind of wrapped me around the axle, kept me from having an abundant mindset, kept me from believing that the future was bigger and brighter than the past that I experienced. And so my decisions were limiting, my actions were tentative, and I ended up struggling as an entrepreneur because of it. So what I have discovered after being an entrepreneur for so many years is that it happens to more entrepreneurs than I ever realized. They get wrapped around the axle. And it's not just because something traumatic like what happened to me happened to them, but because maybe they made a bad partner decision and it didn't go well, and now all partnering is a bad idea. And so they've limited themselves because they opted out of choosing a partner that if they paired up with them, 2 cord strand is stronger than 1, they could have done some incredible things. Or maybe they did a marketing initiative or 2 or 3, and now, because they didn't get any results, they're thinking that all marketing is no good, and so they don't put any money into marketing. Or maybe they didn't get the kind of development they need as a leader to build a team, and they bring people in, but the people don't perform, and now they're moaning and groaning and externalizing about there are no good people available in the marketplace. When in reality, the truth is there's no bad employees, there's only ineffective leadership. And so on and so on and so on. So many entrepreneurs will get wrapped around the axle. They'll lose their freedom. They'll lose the freedom of time. They'll get so busy that you'll hear them frequently say, I'm sorry, I don't have time, I'm too busy, which is a mindset that's very limiting. It's a real telltale sign that they have lost their freedom. When you lose your freedom, then you lose access to your resourcefulness. So the way you look at the future is different than if you're enjoying a tremendous amount of freedom. So I began to coach entrepreneurs and professionals one-to-one about 15 years ago, and I found out, you guys are familiar with the story of Moses leading the children of Israel out of Egypt, right? So he led them out, which was an escape from. And I found out that I was really good at helping entrepreneurs escape from whatever was holding them back. So whatever head trash or psychological anchors were keeping them stuck, stalling their growth, I was able to help them sort of break free from those and achieve some linear growth. But what I wanted to do, which is what Moses wasn't able to do, was freedom 2. go into the promised land, right? So there's a big difference between freeing yourself from something and freeing yourself to do something. So I, earlier this year, had an epiphany when I was walking through downtown Norfolk about my future. I came here, relocated here, because my wife is a resident a native of Portsmouth. Her dad died. We relocated to take care of her mom. So we thought what we were building was portable, so we could take it anywhere we wanted to go because we thought we were going to be here temporarily. We've been here now a dozen years, and we've fallen in love with the area. So we're thinking, okay, let's go ahead and put roots down. Let's look at the future in a different way and see what we want to do. So I got to work and I wrote a program specifically for entrepreneurs who've lost their freedom. Bring them into the program to help them get their freedom back so they gain access to their resourcefulness, they can leverage their unique genius, and grow 10x. That is what I do. Thanks for listening.